Hello and welcome to Teacher Education with the University of Sussex. My name is Sally Dudley and I'm the Director of Recruitment and Admissions for the School of Education and Social Work here at the university. And you're watching this video because we've invited you for an interview soon at Sussex for one of our PGC courses. So the reason I'm recording this is to give you some information about the course, maybe to talk a bit about preparing for your interview, and just to get you familiar with the way we offer teacher education with the University of Sussex, because it's different wherever you go, whichever university or other organisation that you train with is going to be slightly different. So as you can see from the pictures that indicate we're near the sea, for those of you who are coming from quite a lot further afield, the University of Sussex campus is nestled in the South Downs National Park on the edge of the city of Brighton and Hove, where we also have a wonderful pebbly beach and really good lively arts and sports culture and nightlife, and it's a great place to live and to study and to work eventually if you stay on after your course. So anyway, let's get going and I'll talk you through the courses that we offer. So basically we've got one teacher training course, which we call the Initial Teacher Education course, but three different ways of training with us here at Sussex. We've got our PGC course, we've got our school choice PGC, where you actually choose which school you want to study with or train to teach at, where you want to do your placement, and the school direct salaried, where you're employed as an unqualified teacher while you train to teach. But all of those routes give you qualified teacher status and a PGCE. So I'm just now going to explain about the three different routes, because they've got different features really. By the way, I am recording this in one take, so please excuse any stumblings over words or slides going before I'm ready for them to go. Okay, so the PGC and the school choice PGCE are virtually the same course. So it's funded by a tuition fee, which you have to pay as a trainee. If you're a UK student, that's £9,250. If you're an international student, that's £17,625. Some of the subjects have got bursaries, tax-free bursaries, which I'll explain to you in a minute in the next slide. And UK students are eligible usually for student finance, that's student loans to help you finance your course. So both the school choice PGC and our PGC have a gradual introduction to teaching. So you're not just handed a class when you start your placement and nobody says, right, off you go and teach those children. You start very gently by observing experienced teachers teach, observing in the classes that you will eventually be teaching. And then you'll build up gradually to teaching a starter of a lesson. So that's the first part of a lesson. And then after you've done that a few times perhaps, and you've had feedback from your mentor or from the class teacher about how you did, with some feedback for things that you can improve, you'll then move on to teach your first whole class lesson. And then you'll get feedback from that. So that builds you up over the term. By the end of the term, you'll be teaching about 8 hours a week of whole class teaching. Doesn't sound a lot, but it takes a long time to plan and get used to devising lessons when you first start. So that's both of those courses, school choice PGC and PGC, both gradual introduction, supported introduction to teaching. So on the PGC, it's the university that interviews you, usually with a member of staff from a school as well, but we invite you to interview and we interview you. But with the school choice PGC, you have applied directly to a school or a group of schools that want to train a trainee teacher in your subject. And we've got about 10 different groups of schools across the Southeast who work with us, who like to have trainees from our PGC course, but like to train their own. They like to choose people who they might actually want to keep on the staff at the end of it. So you are choosing the school, but the school will be choosing you too, because you will be interviewed by the school as well as the university. We interview first, and then the school will interview you. So the only other difference between school choice PGCE and PGCE is the placements. So on our PGCE, you have 2 equal length long placements over the year, and your subject tutor, who's also your personal tutor, will choose those placements for you. They look very carefully at where you live, what transport you've got, whether you have childcare limitations, what your subject knowledge is like in your subject, what kind of person you are, and they'll choose the school that best fits you. And on the school choice, you've obviously chosen your school placement because you've applied for that school, and you'll spend most of the year in one long placement in your main school, but then you'll have a short 6-week placement in a different school, a contrasting school that your main school will choose for you. And then there's the school direct salaried, which is got similarities and differences to the other routes. So on the salaried course, you would be employed as an unqualified teacher on the bottom point of the unqualified teacher scale, which is about 19,000 at the moment. And you'll be employed as a regular unqualified member of staff. The school pays your tuition fee. You don't have to fund your course at all on this route, but because they're paying your tuition fee and because you're employed, it means that you will need to teach much earlier on than on the PGCE and the school choice PGCE. So you'll have more duties and you'll have more teaching load from much earlier on. So it really does suit people who've got some experience already, either teaching or training in another kind of setting, or who have been an unqualified teacher in the school, or who've worked in the school as a teaching assistant perhaps, or who were career changing from another career where they had a lot of responsibility and perhaps some training content as part of their job as well. Perhaps they had to deliver training and are used to managing different sorts of people and working with in a very busy environment, having to learn very quickly on the job. So on this route, you would be interviewed by the university and the school that you applied to. And again, you'd have one long placement and one short placement, just like the school choice PGCE, where you go for 6 weeks in a second school, but you spend the majority of the year in your own school. So the school direct salaried route is not a route for the faint-hearted, but it works really well for people who are changing from a career, or those who who can't really afford to give up work and take another unsalaried route to teaching. So those, in a nutshell, are our routes, and I'm just going to click to the next slide. So I mentioned the financial incentives, and oops, right, I'm just going to go back again. I said I might make some mistakes with the slides, didn't I? Okay, so these are the financial incentives for the PGCE and the school choice PGCE courses. So these are brand new, they came out this week. You can see there that there are some very high bursaries for the subjects that are in the most demand of getting new teachers into the profession. And you can see which subjects those are. And there's also, in some of the subjects, there's an opportunity for you to apply for a scholarship, which tops up your bursary. It just means that there are some subject associations that will pay your bursary instead of the government, and they'll give you kind of a little bit more money if you apply directly for a scholarship. We've got some new bursaries for art and design, music and RE this year, which are very welcome because those courses have been underfunded. But I'm really sorry, if your subject is not on the list, then unfortunately at the moment it doesn't attract a government bursary at all, and you'll have to completely fund your own course. Just to say, for those international candidates who've applied to us and who are coming for an interview, international candidates are eligible for the government bursary in physics and languages only. And there's also a £10,000 relocation one-off payment to encourage people from overseas to come and help out teaching those subjects in UK schools. So those are the financial incentives which you can see on the government's Get Into Teaching website. If you've not been on there, I recommend that you do so. So this is the shape of the course, kind of what to expect over the year. And this is the same for all three of our courses. I think I explained to you at the beginning that it's basically one course with three different ways of getting qualified teacher status and a PGCE. This is the full-time course kind of structure that I'm going to explain, and then I'll go on to tell you about the part-time. So we start with a 3-week induction at the university, and the idea of this is to prepare you for starting in school. So we do a lot of different activities, lectures, seminars and workshops that will prepare you for starting in school. It's full-time, but it's a combination of online teaching and on-campus teaching. So you get to come in, you get to meet your tutor face-to-face, and you get to work with the others in your subject group, but you also have a couple of days a week where you're engaging in activities from home, watching online content, completing tasks and activities, and doing readings. Which is very important because it gives you a little bit of space and time to reflect on what you're doing at the university. And then your first placement school will start at the end of September, and that will run to February half term for everybody. And during that time, you're going to school Monday to Thursday, and you're at Friday. On Fridays, you come to Sussex. Now that works really well. It's called a serial placement. And what it means is that you are able to really get stuck in at school Monday to Thursday, really see progress in the classroom, really get to know your teachers that you're working with, really get to know the students, and kind of immerse yourself in school life, which is a really good way to learn. But yet you've also got the opportunity to come to Sussex on a Friday, to meet with your tutor, to meet with others in your subject group, to get support from each other, to share ideas, and to receive training on some of the theory behind what you're seeing at school and what you're engaging in at school, and lots of new ideas. And it just works really well for that once a week catch up with those who are going to be your support network over the year. Having a subject group around you and a network is very, very important. I trained to teach about 100 years ago now, and I'm still really good friends with the girls that I trained to teach with, and we meet up, several times a year, and with our families as well. So you will find that friendships of a lifetime are made on a PGCE course, because there are ups and downs, and there are challenges, and there are rewards, and it's really great to go through that journey with others who are in the same boat as you, and your tutor will provide excellent support for you too. So then at February half term, we all switch schools. So everybody switches schools and goes to a different school. Now, the idea is that you go to a contrasting school, and all trainee teachers in the UK have to teach in at least 2 schools. So everyone changes school at some point. If you're PGC, like I said, your tutor will choose a school for you that is contrasting to your second school. And if you're school choice or school direct salaried, that is done by your school, who will find you a different second placement. Now, at that point, we do some Fridays at Sussex and some Fridays where you're in school. And that is important because it's not realistic if you're going to be a full-time teacher to only teach 4 days a week. So we like to give you, in the second half of the year, some weeks where you actually go and teach in school for 5 days a week and get a feel for what it's like to be in there full-time. But we space the Fridays out. So every couple of weeks, so every 2 or 3 weeks, you come back in and receive that support and training with your tutor and with your group. So on to the part-time. So we set up the part-time because we wanted to be a bit more inclusive for those who just couldn't commit to full-time teacher training, perhaps because they've got a family, or perhaps because they're transferring from another job and the course that you want to do doesn't have a bursary and you have to keep working. So anyway, it works over 2 years instead of 1. So the bursary and the tuition fee and the salary, if you're doing the salaried version, is over 2 years rather than 1 year. And then you have to do the 3-week full-time induction in September. We have to top load that training because there won't be another time you can get that training when you need it. So you do have to commit to 3 full weeks in induction. But as I said, some of it's online and some of it is face-to-face. And then you do Fridays at Sussex all through that first year, and 1 academic assignment. I'll talk about the assignments later. And you do 2 days a week in your school. So you arrange those days with the school once you know which placement school you're going to. And then you sort of negotiate which days would be best for you and which would be best for them. But it must include a day when there is the professional studies session going on, which I'll explain about that later. But that's something that happens in a school every week. And then year 2, you go 4 Fridays over the year as a sort of catch up. You do 1 academic assignment, and again, you're in school 2 days a week. And it's during year 2 that you do your second placement. If you're a PGCE trainee, you'll do the whole of your second year in a second school, in a contrasting school. And if you're school choice or school direct salaried, you'll do a shorter placement in a second school and spend most of the year in the original school that you chose and they chose you. So that is the part-time option if you think that might be for you. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about what to expect when you come to the university. So I've talked about the induction. And I've talked about the Fridays. Now, it's all really active, engaging learning. So you can see somebody here, I think it's an English group, and I think they're doing some kind of workshop. So we do have lectures. We have 1 lecture every week, which is for all the secondary cohort, where we get you all into a lecture theatre, and we do something generic with you, something from our professional studies course, which is the input that everybody needs. So it might be something on behaviour management, or it might be something on supporting children who have English as an additional language, or perhaps it could be something on how children learn and sort of child psychology. So something that everybody needs. And then after that, you go off into your subject groups for the rest of the day. Our course is very subject specific, training rich, deliberately, because we're training good teachers of biology, good teachers of media, or good teachers of design technology, not just a generic teacher. So you spend most of the day with your cohort, with your subject cohort, specifically learning how to teach your subject. And it's very practical, it's creative. We like to teach you how we want you to teach and engage your students in schools. And there's trips and workshops in every subject group as well, just to keep it as engaging and interesting for you all as possible. I just realised that I didn't talk much about induction, other than to say that it prepares you for going on to placement. So we do an awful lot of the basics with you. So things like how to plan lessons, how children learn, the beginnings of how to create good, positive relationships in the classroom and manage behaviour. All those kind of things are what we do in induction. We look at your subject knowledge and we look at where the gaps are, and then you can start to work on those gaps. So we look at special needs and start to get you thinking about how teachers have to adapt their teaching for all children in their class, whether they've got special needs or whether they're really able students, so that your teaching meets the needs of all your students and helps all your students to progress. So I digressed back onto induction there. So it's a mixture of subject specific and generic professional studies. I think I've already highlighted that. But your subject tutor also visits you in school and keeps in really good touch with your mentor on your progress. Each week you fill in a Pebble Pad, which is an app reflecting on your progress, and your tutor looks at that each week, and so does your mentor, and they can write comments to each other. So everything's very, very coordinated. So there's synergy between what you're doing at school and what you're doing at the university constantly through the course. Your subject tutor will observe you teach when you come into school as well, and write a report, and they'll observe you jointly with your mentor. And then there'll be lots of feedback for you from those visits and things to put into place in your teaching. And then we've got various tasks and assignments. I'll talk about the 2 academic assignments later on in a slide. But there will be other tasks as you go through your subject training. Your tutor might ask you to do a reading for next week, or they might ask you to make something, or practice some skills, or they might ask you to record yourself teaching a small micro lesson, or there'll be all sorts of different tasks, or make a poster to illustrate certain points, all sorts of activities as you progress through the course. Okay, so on to the next slide. So training in school. So you again have an induction course in the school, which will be run by your professional tutor, and that will go through some of the really important things that you need to know to be able to function effectively as a trainee teacher in the school. So they will talk to you about behaviour management and what the process is for sanctions and rewards and discipline in your school. We'll have done that with you at the university generically, and then what the school does is rooted in what happens in that actual school. What do you do if somebody won't stop talking in the lesson? What would you do if somebody gets out a mobile phone? So actually what happens in your school. And you know, quite a lot of other things like child protection training. We give you child protection training at the university induction, but then you get specific training as to what happens in your school if you notice that or if you're worried about one of the students in your class, that perhaps something isn't right with them. So what do you actually do if you notice that? So, so your induction course will also involve you going into your department, meeting all the teachers in your department, observing lessons in your subjects and across other subjects as well, and just starting to get to know what teaching is like in the school, and you know what your school is like, getting to know your school basically. So I talked about the gradual supported build-up of teaching on the PGC and the school choice. So yes, you start by observing, then you start teaching, and you go through this constant cycle of planning and developing a lesson, teaching it, reflecting on it yourself, and getting feedback from an experienced teacher, and targets then that you work on and put into practice in the next lesson. And that is how you develop as a teacher. And it's really, really important that you are able to learn from others, that you're able to take on feedback, that you're able to then put that feedback into practice, so that your students will learn much more effectively from you and reach their potential, and so that you reach your potential as a teacher as well. In the weekly professional study sessions, your professional tutor, who is an experienced, well, usually a senior leader in your school, who line manages all the mentors looking after trainee teachers in your school, and gathers all the trainees in your school together and puts on training. And it will be that person who runs your induction course when you first start your placement. Your professional tutor will also provide you with some support as well, and they will also observe you teach too. And so they will put on these weekly sessions that you go to, and you'll find in a lot of our secondary schools that there will be loads of trainee teachers. Some of our Brighton and Hove schools have got 20 trainee teachers, also from both Brighton University and Sussex University. There'll be lots of other people for you to get to know, lots of other trainee teachers in your schools as well, which is really nice. You become a really lovely community in a school of support for each other. So your professional study sessions might be things like the marking policy in your school, or how to set homework, or it might be how to work with students who've got additional needs, and they might get the special needs coordinator to come and deliver that session. So there'll be lots of different professional study sessions over the year, and the professional tutors use a set programme that we give them, so that we make sure that all trainees, whichever school they're in, have their professional studies. So they have to do the focus on the same topics each week, so that they synergise with what we're doing with you at the university. So your learnings are like a whole and not sort of into different compartments. So basically what you're going to be learning in school is how to plan lessons to make them engaging, exciting, and where students really learn. Develop really exciting resources. You're going to be doing lots of observations of experienced teachers. You'll learn how to mark and assess work, and how to give feedback to students to help them progress. You'll learn how to make your lessons adapted for all the students you teach, which is really important. So we're inclusive, and we're making sure that every student reaches their potential and learns as best they possibly can through the way that we teach them. And then there'll be things like parents' evenings, getting involved in extracurricular activities like sports or the musical life of the school or whatever. And then obviously, I said already, didn't I, the university tutor visits as well. So that is the training that you get in the school, and it all dovetails with the university training. So in terms of the assessment, we don't have loads of assessment on our course, because we feel that you should really be able to get on with the important job of training to teach young people in school. So Professional Practice 1 and Professional Practice 2 assesses 2 periods of teaching in school. So kind of roughly placement 1, roughly placement 2. So that is assessed by a report that your school writes regularly on your progress against the qualified teacher status standards, and also against the core content framework, which is the curriculum the government have set that all us teacher training providers deliver to you all in our kind of different ways. So your progress will be measured at several points during the year. And your teacher writes a report which comes to the university, and that will enable you hopefully to pass both of your placements. The placements are pass. And then we have 2 academic pieces of work, which we start focusing on, early in the year for the applying professional knowledge. It's an essay. It's quite a long one, but it's really important for you as a teacher who is engaging with research. At Sussex, we are a research-intense university. So that means that what we teach you is based on evidence-based research. We have a lot of colleagues in our department who are research active, who are carrying out cutting edge research in education. And so what we want you to focus on is being the best teacher you can by using all the contemporary research that's out there about how best to teach and how best students learn and how to maximise that. So we look at, in this essay, you look at an area of pedagogy, and that means it's something like, perhaps you might choose assessment, or you might look at planning, or you might look at adapting lessons for students with additional needs. So you'll look and you'll do a lot of reading around the research and the theory on that subject, and then you will use that to plan a series of 6 lessons that follow on from each other, a unit of work, and then you will plan, teach and evaluate those lessons, and then you'll produce a commentary, a kind of essay on that, showing just how what you've read and the theory and the research you've engaged with has really impacted on your practice in planning, teaching and evaluating and reflecting on your lessons. because we want you to become a thinking teacher at Sussex. We want you to be able to challenge and reflect. We want you to think about all these kind of new ideas that come into education all the time and be able to work out for yourself whether they are going to impact on student success and whether they're going to actually make you a better teacher. We want you to really be able to think and take on best practice. And then the last academic assignment is kind of along that theme as well. So what you do is you choose 2 lessons that you taught, one that went really well, one that went badly, or you thought went badly, and then you look again at an area of pedagogy, of theory, and you compare and contrast that in the 2 lessons, and you show how your reading and your research has really improved your teaching in the second lesson. And that is actually quite an innovative exit interview. So it's like a professional dialogue conversation that you have with your tutor, and we invite a mentor along from a school as well to be part of that. And we start working on that sort of February half term, so you get plenty of time to start thinking about that. And I should have said that we start the assignment that we do in term 1, we start that round about October half term, and your teacher will lead and guide you all the way. We're doing little chunks of it. Right, you need to have done your literature review by such and such date. Right, you need to be planning your lessons now, so you're not faced with the whole thing all at once. And we give you some study skill support as well if you feel that you need that. So the applying professional knowledge assignment is handed in after February half term, and the reflecting on professional knowledge will be sometime in June, towards the end of June when the course finishes. Okay, so that's the assessment. So you're coming for an interview, hopefully. So just some things to think about. The first thing I want to say is that we're not out to catch you out or to ask you difficult questions or trick you. We just want you to show us that you've got the potential for being a really good teacher. So these are the things to kind of try and think through for your interview. So why do you want to be a teacher? What's brought you to this point? And why do you want to be a teacher of your subject? If you're coming from overseas, perhaps you might like to think about being able to explain why you want to teach in the UK. What is it that has drawn you to the training that is on offer in the UK? So next thing, what have you got to offer children or young people and the teaching profession? So what are your personal and professional characteristics that you think will make you a really good teacher? So have a little think about those and root that in your experience to date. Okay, and then do some research on what you're going to be training to teach. So have a look at the national curriculum for your subject area. Have a look at the exam specifications for GCSE and for A-level. What are you going to be needing to be able to teach in business, for instance? What topics come up in GCSE for computing? So really have a look at those and think about what your gaps are and how might you work on these. And you can start that straight away. You know, you don't have to wait to come on the course in September. You can start working on those on the subject knowledge straight away. We strongly recommend that you do that because there is a huge amount of subject knowledge you're going to need to know, and you won't get it all in the year before you train or even the year you train. Teachers are constantly developing their subject knowledge as they go through their career. So look at your gaps and start to work on those. And also just try to enjoy the experience. You'll be interviewed by your subject tutor and somebody else as well, often a school mentor. And it's also a nice opportunity for you to kind of get a feel for that person, to get a feel for Sussex and see if it's really where you would like to train. So that's just a little bit about preparing for your interview. Obviously, I'm not going to tell you what the questions are, but those are things to think about. Whoops, slides gone again. Okay, so what happens after your interview? Oh, actually, what I forgot to say about the interviews is that you can choose whether you come in person or whether you have an online interview. Obviously, if you're coming from a long way away, you might prefer an online interview, and any international student would definitely be interviewed online. But some of you who are living a bit nearer might like to come to campus and meet us face to face. So you can choose that yourself. So what happens next? So for PGC, it's really simple. We just interview you at Sussex, and then we enter the result of the interview onto DFE Apply, and we either say, yes, you're going to be ready to train in September, or no, you're not going to be ready to train in September. So it'll either be a yes or a no, but if it's a no, there'll be a little bit of feedback and perhaps some things to do to prepare for applying another year. For school choice and school direct, we make a recommendation to the school. So we might say, oh, this person did a really strong interview, they've got thorough subject knowledge and blah, 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 blah. So we would tell the school that, and then if they like the sound of you, they will then invite you for an interview at their school, which will involve a teaching task with a group of children. So it may be a small group, or maybe a class, but you'll have to plan and teach a lesson as part of your school interview. Also, just to say to international students that schools are generally not at all keen on doing online interviews and like people there in person. So I'm just sort of floating that out there, that it might be much more difficult for you getting to do a school choice or a school direct salaried program. I'm not saying it's impossible, but generally they're not keen on online interviews because they want to see you with their students. They want to see you interact with their members of staff and with their students. So you then decide where you want to train to teach, and you accept your place on DFE Apply. So nice and simple. Right, okay. So I just wanted to share with you some good reasons for training with us at Sussex Initial Teacher Education. I hope I've pulled some of them out as we've kind of gone through the video, but here are some more. So we have really excellent long-standing relationships with schools. Our PGC course started in 1963, and at that point, we decided that trainees were much better training in school than in the university. So we had a school-based course right from 1963, whereas it's been a much, much later invention since then. So Ofsted inspected us in January 2023, and they highlighted the exceptional partnerships and relationships that we have with our schools. And the good thing for you as trainee teachers is that we know the people who train you in school, the mentors and the professional tutors really, really well. So this means that we can get a really good training deal for you in the school. If anything goes wrong, we are straight in to try and help and sort things out and support. So those relationships really do help. We work with 300 plus schools all over the Southeast. And we have got a very, very keen partnership who are very, very enthusiastic about working with Sussex. So all of you, whichever route you're on, study together with the same support, assessment and training. So whichever route you're on, it's not as if the school direct salaried don't get as much training or support, or the school choice don't get as many visits from their tutor. Everybody has the same support and training from us, the same care and attention. We're a small and very friendly department. We don't have a huge number of initial teacher education trainees at the University of Sussex, which means that we can give you a really high level of support and that personal touch. Something that Ofsted also highlighted was the lengths that tutors go to support their trainees, especially in university. So we really want you to be successful. We really want you to become the best teacher that you can become. We have a very strong subject-specific focus at Sussex on training. I think I mentioned that before. all of you, whichever subject you're in, you'll have a good number of other people in that subject area to work with. And most of your day will be spent on Fridays in subject-specific training. And it isn't like that in every provider, where there might only be one person training to teach in your subject in the partnership, so, or two. And you may not have access to a tutor who will be training you for long periods of time in your subject. So that is, we see that as one of our strengths. It's one of the things that makes us distinctive. Also, Ofsted highlighted our curriculum as highly ambitious and very thorough curriculum. So you will be getting a really rich diet of practical, creative activity and teaching, and also the theory and the pedagogy and the research-rich content that you really need to become a thinking teacher. We offer quite a lot of career development opportunities at Sussex. We have a part-time Masters for Early Career Teachers, which you can bring in 60 credits from your PGCE. So that's like a third of your PGCE. That will make up a third of your Masters already from the credits that you've already got on your PGCE. That's a part-time thing that's taught in evenings and weekends. And people use that for their professional development, you know, for career development. It's kind of very similar sort of way of learning and sort of focus as you're doing in your PGCE, so it's quite a natural progression. And what happens is that teachers tend to choose something they really want to focus on in their own practice, and that's what they do their assignments around, supported by their tutors. So there's that opportunity if you want to, once you're qualified. But as a research intense university, as I explained before, there's a lot going on. So we've got about 5 different research centres in our department. And there's seminars, there's conferences, most of it is accessible online. So there's lots and lots and lots to keep you fresh during your training year and also afterwards. And you can come back as a mentor or a professional tutor. We've got lots of our ex-trainees out there in our catchment area and our schools who've been mentors and professional tutors and are now working with us in a different capacity, which is fantastic. And then we've got really good outcomes. Above sector, teacher training provider sector employment outcomes. Nearly all of our trainees are employed at the end of the course. Very high student satisfaction levels for the support and the training that you get at Sussex. We were rated good and outstanding by Ofsted recently in January, and we're 15th for education in the country in the Times and Sunday Times guide to the Good University 2023 as well. So you'll be coming to a university where outcomes are high. And then we're nearly at the end of my video now. And I just wanted to share with you what we see the Sussex teacher to be. What kind of teacher are we trying to train and develop at Sussex? Well, you have to have a strong desire to make a difference to the lives of young people, because that's why teachers teach. It's not about the money or the bursary, although that is nice. And let's face it, we all work to live, don't we? But it's really about that strong calling to work with children and young people and teach and contribute to the community and to contribute to society. And that's what's going to keep you in the job when, you know, things are perhaps a little bit tough, perhaps you're very tired, perhaps you're a bit overloaded. And those are the things that are going to keep you going when it's not easy. We also aim to develop this thinking teacher that I spoke about earlier, who is reflective, who can reflect on their own teaching, reflect on the students' learning, and who's responsive to new ideas, responsive to feedback, responsive to parents, responsive to their colleagues, responsive to the students, of course, and research-driven. So using that theory, using that pedagogy and that research to drive their practice forward. Creative, energetic, enthusiastic, and kind. Kind is a really important characteristic of a teacher, and Ofsted noted recently that our Sussex trainee teachers manage their classrooms with kindness, which I thought was a wonderful quote from the Ofsted report. And I wrote the rest of it down to read out to you, but I have mislaid it, so I won't be able to read that out. But that's what we're aiming for when we're training our trainees at Sussex. Could this be you? Okay, well, I've probably spoken for a lot longer than I intended to, and I hope you're still with me. So thanks for listening. If you've got any questions, do email me, or as I said, just bring them to your interview day. Good luck with your interview. If you come onto campus, I might see you around. If you are being interviewed for some subjects, I might even be in your interview. But good luck, and we hope to have you training with us at Sussex in due course. Bye-bye.